In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Sony filing a patent for the feature that so many PlayStation gamers want. This might be pointing towards PlayStation 5 having backwards compatibility, so I definitely want to take a look at that. On top of that, we're coming up on Paris Games Week 2018. Traditionally has been one of the bigger events in gaming. Last year, we saw a lot of gigantic announcements, but this year, we might see Sony and PlayStation take a little bit of a lighter approach like they did back at E3. Also, Final Fantasy XIV and Ubisoft have been victims to some DDoS attacks. That's very unfortunate, but I do want to take a look at what's going on there. We got 30 minutes of new gameplay for Resident Evil 2, the remake. That is coming out on January 25th, and as we inch closer to the release of that game, we're going to see more information and more gameplay come out. And I do want to round out the video by taking a look at a very exciting feature that'll be coming to God Eater 3. So more on that at the end of this video. First, let's talk about probably the most exciting thing that has come out today, and that's the fact that Sony is planning backwards compatibility for PlayStation 5 if a patent is to be believed. The patent was filed a little while ago, but it was updated on October 2nd, and here's what it says. The title of the patent is called Remastering by Emulation, and the summary is as follows. Each asset, such as texture called for by legacy software, such as legacy computer game software, has a unique identifier associated with it. The unique identifier can be rendered by imposing a hash on the asset, and then the asset stored with its identifier in a data structure. An artist remasters the textures for presentation on a higher resolution display than envisioned in the original software and stores them back in the data structured with their identifiers, and the data structure entered to retrieve the remastered asset having a matching identifier. The remastered asset is then inserted on the fly into the game presentation. Now that definitely points towards backwards compatibility, but it also points towards games being upscaled for whatever resolution your television or monitor is. I've said it multiple times, but PlayStation 5, it has to be a formality that it has backwards compatibility. If you're telling me that Microsoft and Sony announces their next consoles around the same time, and it's confirmed that the next Xbox has backwards compatibility, and on top of that, all of the first-party games are available on Game Pass, and then you have the PlayStation 5, games are released the traditional way, and there's no backwards compatibility, I'm sorry, the tide of the console war is gonna change very quickly, and that's why it's so great that we have competition. Because the PlayStation 4 thoroughly demolished the Xbox One, it made Microsoft step up their game, introduce backwards compatibility, introduce Game Pass, throwing on their first-party games, and now with Microsoft gaining more and more steam and them breathing down Sony's neck, the PlayStation 5 has to make those similar moves. That's why the console war is foolish. It's fun to take a look at it and see where both platforms are going. It's fine to have a preference, but you want them both to be healthy because competition drives the market forward. And in this case, the PlayStation 5 introducing backwards compatibility would be a clear indication of that. I guarantee if Microsoft never introduced backwards compatibility, if they just continued the same route that they were going, Sony wouldn't either. Sony would rather just continue to remaster all of their games every generation, just continue to re-release these games and have people buy them over and over again. But in this case, they really do need to add backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 5. I really do hope that they could get all of the legacy PlayStation content working on it, that being PS4, PS3, PS2, and PS1. PS4, PS2, and PS1 should be a cakewalk. However, PS3 might be a little bit more difficult, as we know that the cell architecture with the PS3 was not very good, and that's one of the prime reasons it's not playable on the PlayStation 4. Even though there are PlayStation 2 games being ported over to the PS4, no problem. You can stream PS3 games through PlayStation Now, but actually locally downloading them and playing them, that is still something that we cannot do. I doubt that backwards compatibility would fully be introduced for the PS4, but if it doesn't come with a PlayStation 5, that would be a big problem. But luckily, this patent is pointing towards PS5 having backwards compatibility. Moving on from that, we just got out of E3, Gamescom rolled around, but there's still another pretty major gaming event that is occurring with Paris Games Week 2018. Now, traditionally, this has been a pretty notable event. However, with Sony taking their foot off the gas with E3, I expect something similar with Paris Games Week. They have already confirmed what games will be playable on PlayStation 4 Pro and what games will be playable on PlayStation VR. Games playable on the Pro include Days Gone, Concrete Genie, Dreams, EA Sports FIFA 19, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and Marvel Spider-Man. Now, of course, they bring out some games that have already been released just to continue to promote them, but the highlights being Days Gone, Concrete Genie, Dreams. Those are games that the general gamer actually wants to see more footage of. With Days Gone, we've already seen a considerable amount of footage, so I don't know how much new footage is going to be shown at PGW, but along with that, I would imagine that we'll get some announcements as well. I just wouldn't expect anything major. I believe last year we got the announcement of Ghost of Tsushima. I just don't know if we're going to see a major announcement like that this year, but fingers crossed. Also, there will be a couple of PlayStation VR titles playable, including Astro Bot Rescue Mission, Tetris Effect, Blood and Truth, Ace Combat 7, Unknown Skies, can't wait to see more of that. Uprooted, Beat Saber, which will be very nice to have on PSVR, Kill X, and Squishes. Paris Games Week will be running at the end of the month from October 26th to October 30th. And considering the fact that PlayStation Experience has been cancelled, this will probably be the last chance Sony has to show off anything major and have that huge promotional push. We'll keep you posted on whatever is announced at Paris Games Week at the end of the month. Moving on from that, Final Fantasy XIV and Ubisoft servers have been unfortunate victims of DDoS attacks. First, Ubisoft support tweeted out this saying, "Hello everyone, we're experiencing a series of DDoS attacks which may impact latency or connections to our game. Stay tuned for the latest here," and then they linked to the Ubisoft forums. Ubisoft also noted that they're working on a fix and saying that we're currently experiencing a series of DDoS attacks which unfortunately are a common occurrence for almost all online service providers. This may impact connections to our games as well as server latency, and we are taking steps to mitigate the issue. They weren't the only ones being troubled by this, as Final Fantasy XIV has also been going through some stuff. Square Enix posted saying, "We are currently experiencing technical difficulties due to DDoS attacks. Players may experience the following issues as a result. We are looking into the ways attacks are being made and taking countermeasures. More information will be provided as the situation develops." Just unfortunate news. Why you have to target platforms like Square Enix and Final Fantasy XIV and then Ubisoft, people just trying to chill out and play their games, that's beyond me, but these things occur from time to time. Hopefully they get it resolved as quick as possible. Moving on from that, we aren't all too far away from the release of Resident Evil 2, the remake. While it won't be releasing before the end of the year, it'll be a very early 2019 release, as it's being released on January 25th, and we have gotten a sizable amount of new gameplay for that with a Claire Redfield demo. We got 30 minutes of gameplay showing off everything that the RE2 remake has to offer, and this game is shaping up very, very nicely. I feel like the anticipation isn't quite there, as we're still kind of busy with all of these fall releases, but I think right after Fallout 76 is released and gamers are looking forward to that next major title, I do think Resident Evil 2 Remake, that's going to be a game a lot of gamers put a lot of attention to. I see this game doing very, very well from a commercial standpoint. Considering the fact that Resident Evil 2 is already a game that has been received very well from a critical standpoint, and this is a full-on remake with modern visuals, this game is looking tremendous. If you've yet to see the 30-minute gameplay demo, I'd highly recommend you to check that out. The only thing is, if you do want to go into RE2 completely fresh, you don't want to have any of the scares spoiled for you, maybe the best idea is to hold off until January 25th and go into the game completely blind. You might have the best experience doing it that way. However, if you're eager to see some gameplay, we'll leave the link in the description box below. And lastly, God Eater 3 is going to be one of the more niche releases of 2019, but a game that I'm personally looking forward to. A lot of people will say that it's Monster Hunter with an anime look, and I can definitely see where that's coming from. And God Eater 3 has gotten a bunch of new screenshots, and it was also confirmed as a first for the God Eater franchise. This time around, the game will have both Japanese and English voice acting. That's great to hear, because sometimes the English voice acting can get a little bit cringy, but if you want that option available to you, it is there. However, if you do want that authentic Japanese experience, I know a lot of you guys do prefer to play with Japanese audio, so you'll have that option as well. On top of that, as I mentioned, there were a bunch of new screenshots revealed for the game, and it is looking quite good. God Eater is going to be one of those games that I don't think is going to get a lot of attention as far as Bandai Namco releases. I think a lot more gamers are excited for Code Vein, but God Eater 3 is still one to keep an eye on. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, it looks like Sony is planning backwards compatibility for PlayStation 5. A patent is definitely suggesting that. Paris Games Week is at the end of the month. I wouldn't expect anything too crazy, but we should see more gameplay of some of the highly anticipated titles. Final Fantasy XIV and Ubisoft were both the unfortunate victims of DDoS attacks. We've got 30 minutes of new gameplay for Resident Evil 2 the remake, and God Eater 3 will have both English and Japanese voiceovers. That's going to conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.